Ever felt like your mind is a broken record, stuck on repeat with the same anxious thoughts? That was me until I discovered the power of now. For 30 days, I lived by Eckhart Tolle's principles. The results? Nothing short of life-changing. Picture this. You're at work, deadlines piling up, emails flooding in. Your mind races, jumping from one worry to the next. You're trapped in a mental maze, no exit in sight. Sound familiar? That was my daily reality. What happened next was unexpected. The constant chatter in my head, it started to quiet down. That nagging anxiety, it began to loosen its grip. But this isn't just my story. It could be yours too. Chapter 1, Embracing the Present Moment. As the mental noise faded, a startling question emerged. What if our thoughts are just passing clouds, not the sky itself? Eckhart Tolle's concept of separating the self from the mind challenges everything we think we know about who we are. You might be wondering, if I'm not my thoughts, then who am I? It's a mind-bending concept, but stay with me. Tolle argues that most of us mistakenly identify our thoughts with our true self. We believe we are the voice in our head, constantly narrating our experiences. But what if that voice is just a tool, like our hands or feet, rather than our essence? During my experiment, I started to notice how often I got caught up in my thoughts, especially when facing challenges at work. One day, as I stared at a daunting project deadline, I felt anxiety creeping in. My mind raced with worried thoughts. I'll never finish in time. My boss will be disappointed. I might lose my job. In the past, I would have spiraled into stress and self-doubt, but this time, I tried something different. Tolle introduces a technique he calls watching the thinker. It's exactly what it sounds like. You step back and observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. It's like you're sitting in a movie theater, watching your thoughts play out on the screen. This practice of observing thoughts without getting caught up in them is key to experiencing the power of now. It creates a space between you and your thoughts, allowing for moments of silence and clarity. In these moments, the world around you can suddenly feel more vibrant and alive. But let's be real, staying present isn't easy. Our minds are habitual time travelers, constantly revisiting the past or worrying about the future. During my 30-day experiment, I noticed how often my thoughts drifted away from the present moment. Whether I was eating lunch, working on a report, or even watching a movie, my mind would wander to past regrets or future anxieties. Recognizing this tendency was the first step in breaking free from it. I started using simple tricks to anchor myself in the present, taking a deep breath, feeling the sensation of my feet on the ground, or focusing on the details of my surroundings helped bring me back to the now. The breakthrough came on day 17 of my experiment. I was in a meeting, presenting an idea I was nervous about. Usually, my mind would be racing with thoughts of potential criticism or failure, but this time, I stayed present. I focused on the words I was saying, the faces of my colleagues, the feeling of the marker in my hand as I wrote on the whiteboard. To my surprise, the anxiety that had plagued me in similar situations for years simply dissolved. This moment illustrated a powerful truth from Tolle's teachings. Much of our suffering comes from identifying too closely with our thoughts and emotions. By creating some distance through observation, we can experience a profound shift in consciousness. Tolle puts it this way: to complain is always non-acceptance of what is. During my experiment, I started to notice how often I mentally complained about situations I couldn't change. Traffic jams, rainy weather, a colleague's annoying habit. My mind would resist these realities, creating unnecessary stress and frustration. Chapter 2, Confronting the Pain Body. As I embraced acceptance, I stumbled upon a startling realization. Have you ever felt like your emotions were hijacked by an unseen puppeteer? There's a name for this phenomenon, and recognizing it might just revolutionize how you handle life's challenges. Enter the pain body. It's not some mystical entity, but rather a reservoir of accumulated emotional pain from past traumas. Think of it as an invisible emotional baggage we carry around, influencing our behavior in ways we often don't realize. During my 30-day experiment, I noticed how this pain body would suddenly activate, causing me to react disproportionately to minor annoyances. One day, a coworker's harmless comment about a project delay sent me into a spiral of anger and frustration. It felt like an overreaction, but I couldn't stop myself. That's when I remembered Tolle's advice: observe these reactions without judgment. So, I took a mental step back. I watched my anger rise and fall, almost like watching waves on a beach. Surprisingly, this simple act of observation created a space between me and my emotional reaction. This practice of disidentifying from the pain body is crucial. It's not about suppressing emotions, but rather acknowledging them without letting them control you. Over time, I found myself responding to situations more calmly rather than reacting impulsively. But here's where it gets really interesting. Tolle suggests that accepting difficult situations instead of resisting them can lead to unexpected positive outcomes. I put this to the test during a particularly stressful week at work. Our team was facing a seemingly impossible deadline. Normally, I'd be consumed by anxiety, working myself into a frenzy. Instead, I chose to accept the situation fully. This is what it is, I told myself. Fighting it won't change the deadline. To my surprise, this acceptance didn't make me passive. Instead, it cleared my mind, allowing me to approach the problem more creatively. I suggested a new workflow that not only helped us meet the deadline, but also improved our overall efficiency. My boss was impressed, and the team's morale soared. This transformative moment illustrated the power of acceptance. By not wasting energy fighting against reality, I freed up mental resources to find solutions. It's like the old saying goes, what you resist persists. When you stop resisting, you open yourself up to new possibilities. But this isn't always easy. There were days during my experiment when the pain body felt overwhelming. I'd find myself caught in old patterns, reacting emotionally to minor frustrations. The key was to be patient with myself, remembering that this is a practice, not a perfect science. One particularly powerful realization came when I started noticing how my pain body affected my relationships. Arguments with my partner that used to escalate quickly began to lose their charge. By recognizing when the pain body was active, I could pause and respond more thoughtfully rather than lashing out from a place of old hurt. This awareness created a ripple effect. Not only did my own emotional reactions become more balanced, but I also became more understanding of others' emotional outbursts. I could see their pain bodies at work, which fostered empathy rather than judgment. As the days went by, I found myself living more and more in the present moment. The pain body, while still present, began to lose its grip on my daily life. It was as if I'd discovered a superpower, the ability to observe my emotions without being controlled by them. Chapter 3. The Illusion of Time. As I mastered the art of observing my emotions, I stumbled upon a startling realization about the nature of time itself. Have you ever considered that your perception of past and future might be nothing more than a trick your brain plays on you? Tolle distinguishes between clock time and psychological time. Clock time is useful for practical purposes, like scheduling meetings or catching trains. But psychological time? That's where things get interesting. It's the mental habit of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, effectively robbing us of the present moment. During my 30-day experiment, I noticed how often my mind would wander away from the now. While working on a project, I'd find myself reliving past mistakes or imagining future failures. These thoughts felt real and pressing. But were they? According to Tolle, they're just illusions created by the mind. To break free from this mental time travel, I started practicing what Tolle calls anchoring oneself in the present. It's simpler than it sounds. One day, as deadline pressure mounted, I felt anxiety creeping in. Instead of getting lost in worry, I focused on physical sensations. The feeling of my feet on the ground, the rhythm of my breath, the weight of the pen in my hand. Suddenly, the anxiety lost its grip. The deadline was still there, but my relationship to it had changed. This practice of using physical sensations to connect with the present became a powerful tool. During stressful meetings, I'd focus on the sensation of my breath. When stuck in traffic, I'd pay attention to the details of my surroundings. These small acts of presence created moments of peace in previously stressful situations. But here's where some people get skeptical. Doesn't living in the now mean ignoring responsibilities and future planning? It's a common criticism, but my experience proved otherwise. By focusing on the present, my mind actually became clearer. I could assess situations more accurately without the fog of anxiety about potential futures or regret about past actions. This newfound clarity led to better decision-making. Instead of making choices based on fear of future outcomes or past regrets, I could see the reality of each situation more clearly. For example, when faced with a career opportunity that would require relocating, I was able to consider it without getting caught up in what-ifs about the future or attachments to the past. I could clearly see the pros and cons in the present moment, leading to a decision that felt right regardless of the outcome. Tolle's insights suggest that while time is essential for practical living, it's ultimately a mental construct that can trap us in cycles of regret and anxiety. Breaking free from these patterns doesn't mean ignoring the past or future entirely. Instead, it means approaching them from a place of present awareness. This shift in perspective had a profound impact on my relationships. I found myself truly listening to others rather than planning my response or thinking about something else. Conversations became richer, more meaningful. As Tolle says, the greatest catalyst for change in a relationship is complete acceptance of your partner as he or she is, without needing to judge or change them in any way. By being fully present, I could offer this acceptance more easily. The concept of time as an illusion might seem abstract, but its practical applications are significant. By focusing on the now, we can break free from patterns of anxiety, regret, and worry that often dominate our mental landscape. We can make decisions based on clear perception rather than fear or attachment. We can connect more deeply with others and with our own experiences. If you enjoyed this summary, please subscribe to our channel.